For those of you that I have not met yet, my name is David Scheffrahn. I have the privilege of being the Vice President of Sales for Ocado Intelligent Automation for North America. And this morning I'm joined by Chris Lingamfelter. Chris Lingamfelter
Hi, everyone.
has a long history in warehouse automation. Part of that time was with Six River Systems, acquired by Ocado Automation a number of years ago. And today he's the founder of Robot Advisors. And so we're super excited about his perspective as he consults with companies on their automation journey. And then I'm also joined by Kevin Kuntz, Senior Vice President of Fulfillment at Gap, and someone who we've had the privilege to work with for, we were talking earlier, about 8 years with the Gap and with Kevin's team. So super excited to dive into a few questions this morning that are going to be focused around building the business case for automation, some of the challenges that are faced when you're doing that, and then also talking a little bit about picking strategic partners and considerations around that as well. So I'm going to dive right on in. And my first question, I'm going to start here with Kevin. Often when fulfillment organizations are looking at their business, the first place to start is process improvements, lean initiatives, things like that. But you get to a point where you've gotten the gains you're going to get. And automation is the next thing for you. You know, what's your thought process around when you know that it's time to automate and when that that time has come?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. Like our early days was all about, hey, how do you find the easy money? Hey, I can go make small process changes, have a good ROI on that. I didn't risk a whole lot to get that improvement, right? So when those things dry up, now you got to go. And I think Gary said it well. Hey, you're going to take some chances here. Or you're going to go all in. And I can tell you again, competitors. So sorry about the reference, but our journey started with a shuttle system, right? And I'll never forget that conversation sitting in front of our supply chain chief at the time, who I hounded for like 2 years. I was all in, Gary, right? I wanted that system, and he says, "I'll give you the money, but if it doesn't work, you're losing your job," right? So. That is kind of like where we started, and you have to have confidence that, hey, this is going to work for you. And I think the other thing, to be honest with you, is, look at your process flow, and I think Gary mentioned this a little bit. I can't redesign my whole process flow to put in technology. It better fit in to something that already exists. Because I can change one piece of my process flow. I can't change the entire flow because that's where things go horribly wrong. And we've learned that the hard way, for sure.
I think Ocado's journey started with the shuttle system as well. So I think we share that history in our automation journey. Chris, when you're working with companies and advising them, what are some of the triggers that clue you into the fact that it's time for an automation initiative?
I think if they have the opportunity to benchmark against peers, that can be a good way to see where you are. There are some industries, Coke and Pepsi, that will never talk to each other and they hate each other, and but a lot of industries are willing to help each other. Partly more so now than I think we've seen ever before, because Amazon's breathing down everyone's neck, right? And if you don't figure out a way to become excellent, someone else will, right? So sharing those perspectives and benchmarking your operation. I like to focus in on one metric, and the metric may be different for different organizations, but I'm a simple guy, and I like cost per unit just because I can relate to it, right? And understanding where you are today is really important. And we wrote a piece at Robot Advisors a while back about, don't go to a trade show and say, "Oh, I love that shiny thing," right? I mean, that's okay. You can go buy a pair of glasses with cameras built in for yourself, right, in the consumer goods space. But for a business, you need to know where you want to take your business over time and make sure the technology facilitates that transition.
That's a great point. That cost per unit metric, as a North Star. I know at Ocado, our metric that's our North Star is units per labor hour. And we track that and measure that across the entire business. And every investment that we make, has to increase that metric. And we do that across all 25 of the sites that we manage ourselves. When you're looking at automation, what are some of the metrics that are important to Gap?
Yeah, I mean, you guys spoke to two of them. Those should probably resonate with everybody in the audience, right? It's cost per unit is the ultimate, right? When we talk about cost, units per functional hour, units per labor hour, all those things matter. They all bubble up to cost per unit at the end of the day. So, it's pretty simple. Do you get the ROI and what's the payback period that you get? And look, we're far enough in the automation journey at Gap that, to be honest with you, we got a little bit of leeway. I don't always need to get like a hard dollar ROI anymore because we have a track record that's, we've proven ourselves. So, we've got technologies that if you go in and say, hey, did my productivity or units per functional hour get better? The answer is no. Okay. Did my CPU improve? Yes. And you're probably sitting here saying, wait a minute, how does that make sense? So we have soft cost, right? So in our case, this particular piece of technology that's unloading trailers, if you look at a human versus a robot, the human's winning hands down. And everybody that walks through and tours the facility, they see it. They see more boxes coming out of that trailer that the human's throwing. And then you watch the robot and it's 20% slower, probably, at least. But what's the main difference? Our number one injury in the entire warehouse is in a trailer. Walls fall. People step up on boxes, the box crushes. So we've paid for more shoulders and more knees through the years than you could ever imagine, and those get expensive. So we've gotten beyond just hard costs, and now we're allowed to count some of those soft costs, so we've seen workers' comp go down. Are we being a little liberal maybe? Like head counts come down, so therefore workers' comp should come down, but all of that automation has played a big role in millions and millions of dollars annually that we don't pay in workers' comp. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. Sometimes it's the potential that you see in a technology, right? It's not always, hey, it may not be completely ready. Flexibility is key, right? Like, hey, you can see that it's going to start out doing X. What's the roadmap? And good vendors like yourself, you guys share a very robust roadmap. Here's what we're doing today. Did it earlier, right? Here's the future. And if you buy into that, you can really, get ahead of some of the, the bigger demands and get better pricing too. Don't be afraid to embrace, and be an early pioneer. That was our journey with Kindred, as you well know. I mean, we had, when they bought Kindred, we had kind of the very first, I think, machine that ever went into production, I believe. But like when we got it, it was like a demo machine. And, you fast forward to today in 8 years, we have 287 of those sort machines running in our online operation, right? So that's 4 shifts a week, right? We do basically a Sunday through Wednesday, a Wednesday through Saturday, first and second shift. So multiply 287 by 4, and that robot's doing that amount of what used to be done by labor. So, and we had to have a big, when we started out, it was like 200 units an hour. Our employees were doing 5. But what allowed that to happen? That was also back when labor was really tight, and I couldn't get people to work Saturday nights. I couldn't get people to work Friday nights. The robots did.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. That's actually our experience with our on-grid robotic picking is It works when sometimes off shift even.
Yep.
You were sharing with me earlier today about how it seems like your approach to automation and flexibility is that you also change processes kind of iteratively where, you bring in the automation and that changes the way people work, and then you change the way your people work and that changes your automation.
Yep.
And there's a journey in that as well.
Yeah, this wasn't scripted, but taking it back to your first question, right? Like, hey, how do you know when it's time?
Yep.
The other thing that automation does is you have optimized everything in your network before you started the automation journey. People get bored. It's repetitive. You don't think. So we brought the sort robots in. The way what you see the sort robot today compared to what it did 7, 8 years ago is completely different. And I know you guys don't call them this, so I apologize to everybody in the room. We call them orbs for whatever reason, right? That's how but it's a round machine, right? So we do pack from an orb today, right? So we used to do the sort, the light lit, pick the light, hey, this is done, green, take it out, put it into a baker's rack. They'd roll the baker's rack over to pack station and pack it. So now they wear a hip printer. When the light turns green, they take the units out, drop them in the bag. So and this just happened in the last 12 to 18 months. So we took an old technology, right? It's old in a lot of ways, and it's got a new life now because I no longer have to take this thing. I never have to roll the baker's rack over to a pack table. Then I got to retake out every single order that I put into it, right? Then I got to put it in a bag and print the label. So I've eliminated 3 touches through that whole process. And you start adding up the labor that those 3 touches cost you, it's on 200 million units that we're sorting through your machines per year, it's a big number in labor. So it's it's a great example of how you optimize.
Yeah, yep. Fantastic. Chris, at Gap, obviously, Kevin's team has developed a tremendous amount of credibility. And so when they go to they may have, a platform to stand on when they're looking at new automation initiatives. I would imagine a number of your clients are looking at some of their early automation approaches. What are some of the gotchas that they need to be aware of that could derail or delay their projects?
Yeah, good question. I like that, David. And I love the way Kevin said we're allowed to take safety savings into our equation when we're justifying a system. I think your journey with your finance team and your CFO is going to be an interesting one, and I would fully expect, especially for smaller solutions, that it's labor, right? Like, yes, I hear that we're going to grow, we're going to get orders out faster, so we're going to get more, and yes, it's going to be safer, and we're going to have energy savings and all, but I don't care about any of that. Tell me, what the headcount is today, and what should I expect the headcount to be, and especially for the chuck-based solutions, right, that have a shorter, a smaller investment level and a shorter payback. You should be able to see a justification. Of course, depending on where you are currently in your operation, but based on labor alone.
Yeah. Some of these are big bets, and I think in Gap's example, we had an opportunity to have a relationship with them, and then move into one of those bigger bets. And when I think about where Chuck fits with a lot of our customers, is it gives them an opportunity to have a success story. If your shuttle wasn't successful, it'd be hard to do the next thing.
Yep.
And so it has an opportunity to be a quick win and then build on that momentum for other initiatives.
Yeah, as you're working with a partner like Gap does with Ocado, you often see the partnership between the supplier and the practitioner sometimes is even tighter than your internal relationship. Maybe all of a sudden there's a new CFO who wants to question everything, and and it's trust. You build that trust over time and success stories, and that's important.
Well, let's transition into partnership a little bit. So when you guys are looking at the companies that you want to go on these journeys with, these are long-term relationships. You're going to be sweating these assets for years. What do you look for in a partner? I guess I'll start with you, Chris. What do you advise people to look for in companies that are going to partner like this with?
Well, I think you want a partner that aligns to how you see your business evolving, because like you said, it is a long-term relationship, 10, 15, maybe even longer, right? And so you want a company, if let's say your company is, you only have one type of SKU, it's, your shoe boxes have never changed, right? Like, that could be a place where innovation is not as important as, all the great things that Ocado is doing, where, it can be a relationship where you start with Chuck and then you evolve to a grid system and then you add, the picking component on top of that, and next thing you know, along comes Porter, and so that relationship can evolve over time. One thing that I think is really important is to share where you think your business might go over that time horizon with your suppliers, right? So it might be that you're looking at acquiring your biggest competitor, and your SKU count, in one day, in an instant, is going to go from 10,000 to 20,000 SKUs. Well, that's going to dramatically change, your needs in the distribution center. Or, maybe you're opening new channels and you're going to have to pick, smaller. Your order profile is going to change dramatically. Or, we had a customer in Denmark who, I don't know that they knew this, but their SKU profile changed incredibly overnight as they got into flat screen TVs, which kept getting bigger and bigger, and none of the automation system could support that, and how they married orders up and everything became very challenging for them. So, sometimes there's going to be things that come down the road that you can't anticipate, and that gets to the flexibility that Monique was talking about earlier. But very, very important to share what you can and do what we call a sensitivity analysis. So, okay, if my business looks like this automation solution is going to work perfect for me, but what if my order volume increases by 20%? What if my order volume goes down, but my SKU count goes up, right? And do that analysis as part of the ROI calculation so that you know where the ROI is going to break down before, and you can say to your CFO, these are the assumptions that we've built in, and we've protected ourselves for the following business changes. If you go buy a company that's twice our size, well, it's not going to fit into the warehouse, right? But
yeah, I think that's a great point. One of the things that some of our customers have told us recently is the ability to scale up and down is a newfound advantage, and something that they're looking for in partners. What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would add is, are your roadmaps aligned? Hey, does your partner have a roadmap? Hey, sometimes they developed a great product, may be a really big success, but if they're not looking down the road 2 to 3 years, someone's going to come along and have a better, widget, and they're going to be passed. So for me, it's here's what your product does today. What do you have over the next 3 to 5 years that you plan on moving into, so that those, expectations are aligned and somewhat similar. In some cases, maybe if you become big enough, you can influence the roadmap, on what's important. We've looked, great example, I don't remember how long ago it was we were in Monroe, Ohio. It's been years now, right? And I just remember really impressed, but also wasn't willing, to Gary's language, to take the risk back then, because you and Auto Store were kind of like, hey, who owns all the technology? So, the minute that was over, we're like, yes, we know that this is the product that we want, because we've had a lot of conversations, over a long period of time. We have a relationship through the acquisition that you did, and we watched that, with Kindred, who now resides in Ocado, the innovation, the ability to listen and improve. We were the feedback mechanism. Hey, here's what works for us, here's what doesn't. And the amount of head changes that we've seen, the algorithms that got changed to make that successful, was an awesome journey for us, to go from 200 units an hour to 400 plus, and then you look what we're doing with it today. It's great. I'm excited about the head. We've got you guys, Kindred has a unique head. We got the suction cup, and it kind of turns to suction, and then there's a fingers that catch it. That all came about because somehow we were occasionally picking up 2 units, right? So then they'd sort the 2 units, you do the check on the backside. That was our number one complaint for a long time. It's like, if I had to do all these exceptions, and I say, it's 2%, but 2% exception rate's big. So, they came back and said, we've solved it. And we didn't solve it. We just told them what the problems were. And that was, you looked at it and you're like, hey, it's genius, but huge success. But that partnership, they listened, right, along the journey. So that's a big part of, I think, who you pick. Do they listen to you?
Yeah, it's 2 ways, though, because I know that our product team, for example, really appreciated, some of what you shared about your roadmap.
Yep.
And that gives us a lot of confidence in, we think we know where our customers want to go, but, you shared that, very explicitly with us as well. I think we've got just enough time for a question or two from the audience, if anybody has a question.
It's challenging because it's based on some assumptions, right? But let's say right now you have a order cutoff time at 3 p.m. because the trucks leave at 6 and you need 3 hours to process the orders, and you put in some automation and you can cut that down to 45 minutes, right? So now you're taking 2 more hours of orders. What percentage of the people wake up and place their orders at 9 a.m., go to their desk? If it's a business, I don't know what your business is, right? It may be marginal, and in the world of consumer goods, it's everything, right? I want Amazon to come out with a button at the top that says, if I can't get it tomorrow, don't show it to me, because I am just like you, the last minute shopper. But you will absolutely be taking orders later. You'll open it up. You're just going to have to make some assumptions and experiment with it. But those are orders you wouldn't capture otherwise. The other thing to again, back to the benchmarking thing is, if there's another channel, one of your competitors where I could go up until 4:30 p.m. and place that order, are you not just losing that order, but are you losing that customer? And that's something that's really important to look at.
But just at the end, one sentence on, on basically what's your number one factor for building an effective business case for automation?
Do you want to go first? Or want me to go first?
Go ahead.
I think it's the assumptions that go into building the ROI and understanding. I'll tell a story, which is a Six River story. Years ago, we had a client who said to us they had a 2-shift operation, but in fact the shifts overlapped by 4 hours, so they needed twice as many trucks as they thought they needed, which of course affected the ROI. And we worked through that with them in the end, and they ended up being a happy customer. But there was an aha moment in a bad way there, right? I think the key is look at what your assumptions are, understand how sensitive the ROI is. The number of shifts is one of the things that really can make or break it very quickly, but there are a lot of other assumptions that go into it, and understanding that is really important.
Very good.
So I'm going to try to keep it to the one sentence.
Yeah.
What problem?
I thought it was one thought.
Yeah,
One sentence?
what problem does it solve?
Very good.
Right?
Yeah.
And does it support the business?
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be another great one.
I think that goes to Gary's presentation. I like that.